Hello and welcome to the next episode of One Path to Wealth. Well, we talked about in earlier episodes how we're going to go on the road and start talking to some of the people that we know and love and care about and do business with. And it was 1998 that I first had my first love affair with wine. It started in Napa Valley, California, where I met a friend, Juan Mercado, and he started talking to me about all the incredible aspects of wine and the terroir and all the things that made wine so incredible. So started enjoying wine there. And then it wasn't very long after that, probably about 10 years, that he said, there's this place, Paso Robles, that you need to check out and understand and learn. And while Juan had created a very successful brand in Napa Valley called Realm Cellars, he decided to do it again. Came out of Paso, introduced us to it. What was amazing to me about coming to Paso is, in addition to the beautiful location, the people that you met, when you go to Napa, which is very bougie, and you've got the 4,000 wineries and the 4 international airports that surround it, Paso's a little sleepier. It's beautiful. It's quiet. The people are incredible. And soon afterwards, after experiencing it, I found that the wine was pretty incredible too. So the two of the folks that I brought with me today to share some of their experiences about Paso Robles, the wine region, the cocktails that we are going to enjoy while we have this podcast with you, are Don Burns here on my left, proprietor and winemaker at Turtle Rock, formerly the assistant winemaker at Saxon Wine with his childhood friend Justin Smith. And then to my right is the incredibly talented Kit Kuyper, owner of Hawks Hill Ranch. Kit's got an incredible product and incredible winery here producing, in addition to some other fantastic things, some great wines here out of the Paso Robles region. So with that, I wanted to have a conversation, dialogue, have some fun along the way, and just really introduce you all to my passion for wine. So Don, a little bit about your experience at Saxon. So you grew up with Justin.
I did, yeah.
You decided to get into winemaking. Tell us a little bit about that experience, that story.
I started with growing up here. I worked on his parents' vineyard, James Vineyard, as a state vineyard back when I was like 13 years old. Not doing anything very important, but it was, a summer job. I went to Cal Poly for ag business, moved away, traveled a little bit, wanted to get out of my small little town and see the world. Ended up in South Florida, the Palm Beach area, and got into the restaurant side of things and became a somm. Got into wine and selling wine, but every fall I would go home and see Justin, and he'd be making wine and started his brand, and just so in love with what he was doing and had so much passion for it. And and I after that, soon after that, I got married, had a kid, and I quickly realized that
you needed to drink more.
I needed to drink more, and I needed to afford to drink more. So I made it myself. I figured, if nothing else, I could drink what I make for the rest of my life, even though I never made any money. But I wanted to get out of the restaurant business, so I called up Justin and asked him if he would teach me how to make wine. At the time, his brand was not what it is now, and he said, I can't pay it, but if you want to come out, I'm happy to teach you what I know. And so I came out, showed up every day, first person there, last person out for about a year and a half until I kind of forced him into hiring me. Then I was assistant winemaker for about 15 years, and I couldn't ask for a better mentor or a better introduction to wine business.
It's fantastic. So, Kit, a little bit about your background. It's very different. Obviously, you're not a winemaker per se. I know you do have.
I heard his winemaker is phenomenal.
and tall and handsome.
Full disclosure, Don Burns is the winemaker for Hawks Hill Ranch, or one of the winemakers, I should say, for Hawks Hill Ranch. But
tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you coming in, and obviously you're very involved in the winemaking process and some of the other phenomenally unique things that you're doing at Hawks Hill. But give us a little bit of a flavor of how you got into this business, obviously the finance background, and how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the finance background, spent most of my time in Chicago, which the weather sucks for the most part, so I wanted to get to California. I was in the restaurant industry while I was, getting through my career. And of course, when you're in a restaurant, you get exposed to great wine, and that's really where the passion began. So started there. My father moved out to Paso Robles, and that was kind of what gave me the vision to see it before it really blew up. But still, you could see the bones of this area. It's so beautiful. It's amazing terroir, amazing temperatures, beautiful rolling hills, and accessible at the time, as opposed to Napa that was just inaccessible. And the other thing that just being able to connect with, we love Napa, but Napa's pretty commercialized. It's pretty corporate. You don't really just walk into a place in Napa and meet with the proprietor or the winemaker. There's just layers to that. And I think Paso's always had that, that authenticity where you're talking to a winemaker, you're talking to a proprietor, you're really intimately involved as a consumer walking through this area. And it's authentic. It's amazing. So
yeah, and I think too, like from a business perspective or investment perspective, like it's almost untouchable. It's almost reached the point where there's no return on it. And if someone wanting to do a startup or begin their own brand, it just doesn't make sense financially.
Right.
You can't even do it there.
Well, the thing is that you're going to have to cut corners somewhere along the way in order to get and push money on marketing and differentiate yourself. I think in Paso, there's such a diversity of wine. The price point's a little less, so you get people actually expressing the artisan that they are and producing products that are authentic. Not, in Napa, you have to make cab. That's what you have to make to pay the bills in order for it to work. Here, you don't necessarily have to make cab. You don't have to. You can make whatever you want. You just have to make it authentic, and and do that. That diversity of wine here differentiates each brand. So it's a pretty cool experience when you come to Paso.
You guys just came off of an incredible wine journey, wine cruise in France. Tell us a little bit about, I'd like to hear from both of you guys on this. What's your experience thinking about the old world style of winemaking, the product that's ultimately created versus what we experience and what I would say the average consumer understands, to your point, Kit, about Napa Valley Big Cabernet or Pinot Noir from Sonoma. What's your overall feeling? And Don, I'd love to hear your answer for this first about the differences today versus what they were 10 years ago.
In our area or just in general?
I think in general.
I think there's a big difference between old world and new world. I think that gap between the two is closing a little bit. And I think it's there's a lot of tradition, a lot of history. I've done pourings with Louis Moreau from St. Colme. When we were introduced as he was the one whose family's owned a winery for 720 years, and I was the guy who made wine for 720 days. So there's definitely a huge gap in the history side of things. And in the stylistically too, the wines, I think they're a little bit more nuanced traditionally, or especially in the past, in the old world, a little more complex, generally a little bit lighter in alcohol. California's a little traditionally fruit forward, a little bit larger, a little bit more viscous, more texture. Interesting thing though is we have a lot of friends in Chateauneuf-du-Pape now, and as climate change or temperatures rising, however you want to look at it, they started to make wines a little bit higher alcohol, a little more texture, a little riper. So part of it was just tradition in the way that they grow things and the way that they farm, which is all controlled by the government. Where we have handcuffs off here, we can do whatever we want, which is also a wonderful thing. But also they were restricted by weather. It's cooler. It's wetter, so that provides a certain style of wine. We have it here in California. We have cold climate wines, cool climate wines, warm climate wines. So it's really not as much about the wine making and the people as it is about the region that you're growing the grapes in. So as much as we think there's differences between old world and new world, a lot of us think the same way. We vinify similarly. We use the same processes. We really are closer together than people would think by trying to wine. It's more about region-specific, terroir specific, and weather specific. And I think as you're seeing things get warmer, wines get more and more like the older wines, get more and more like California, and I think they like that.
I think they're actually being influenced by a lot of California wines too. I mean, the old world style is it's kind of fallen out a little bit, and I think producers there are producing riper wines, more approachable wines out of the gate, where they don't have to age for 10 years, and things like that. So it's interesting how much influence California has had in France, which is shocking. I mean, because 20, 30 years ago, it would be like...
Yeah, and we drink a lot of French wine. This is not coming from a place of we're superior, we're better. We love French wine. But I do think that gap is closing between the differences between the two. And I think that also, in the same regard, especially in Paso Robles, we are actually learning from them and starting to make wines in a little bit more old world style. So our wines are getting more complex, a little bit lower alcohol, a little more finessed. Where 10 years ago we were making these powerhouses, just extract as much as you can, as much power, as much tannin, as much color. And now we're comfortable enough. We have enough of the marketplace. We can actually really make what we like to drink, what we think is the best wine, and not think about it from a commercial standpoint.
So, you start thinking about the commercial standpoint a little bit. Let's talk about that. So, we see all these beautiful properties in Paso. We see all these beautiful properties in Napa. Obviously, over the years, the real estate in Napa has accelerated at a pace that's been light speed, to say the least. We're starting to see that a little bit here in Paso. How important is the terroir? How important is the location? Can you grow a really tremendous Pinot Noir, for example, in Paso versus Sonoma? Talk a little bit about some of the growing techniques and some of the things people should be thinking about when they're buying a bottle of wine, whether it be from Paso or Napa or Sonoma or the Old World.
I mean, he probably grows more grapes than I do, but I would say that the first and foremost thing about varietals and regions is regions are known for a varietal for a reason. And generally, if that's what the region is known for, that is what you should be buying. That's the place you should be buying from. Like you mentioned Pinot and Paso. There's a few people that have pulled it off, but it's really difficult. I mean, what I love I love Burgundy, and I love some Sonoma Pinots and Washington Pinots, Oregon. It's so out here, So if you want to do it right, you have to grow what grows properly in the region you're in. The region is so specific to varietals. And you might not be that you can't do multiple varietals, but hot varietals that like sun, varietals that don't like water versus varietals that love water and don't like a lot of sun. I think there's some easy factors there that are controllable. You can just go, okay, I should buy Pinot from here. I should buy Syrah from here. I should buy Cabernet from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some obvious choices. I would not necessarily recommend planting Pinot Noir in Paso Robles, but
on a south slope, why not?
Yeah, I mean, so you have to use some common sense, but that doesn't mean you can't break the rules and experiment with certain varietals that would potentially work here or there. But Pinot, Chardonnay, things like that, which are Burgundian varietals, need to be in cooler climates.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, I think when you look at wine, you purchase wine, looking at AVAs, sub-AVAs, Paso has obviously other sub-AVAs. And there are some areas where I would consider maybe a Pinot Noir, like Warp Mountain or something like that. Maybe, not that there is any Pinot there, but that would be a cooler area. But anywhere in Paso, yeah, I would stay away from it. I mean, I do make a Chardonnay, but I don't grow the fruit in Paso. It's a coastal vineyard, so we bring that fruit in and we make it. So,
and like Pinot's so specific, such a thin skin grape. It's very sensitive.
One of the things that I heard you say is about the art, how you're restricted so significantly in Old World versus here. And just a general comment, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts more. But I always thought of you never buy Cabernet in Paso Robles, never can buy Cabernet in Paso Robles. And then I tried your Cabernet, and I was like, holy cow, this is unbelievable! Wow, one of my favorite. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting here next to me. I'm saying this because you told me to. But I do love your Cab. You know that because I do.
Absolutely.
So as we kind of sit here and think about what that means. So you guys today, as winemakers, as growers, are able to do so much more with the fruit, so much more with the land. The process is different. You're learning from all these different places. As you start thinking about what the next 10 years looks like, what is that? From a farming perspective, what are you going to be doing that's differently Kit going forward? And then also from a winemaking perspective, I'd love to know, Don, what you're doing as well. But Kit, start there. Like, what do you guys
I mean, look, we're growing not as a commercial farm to sell. We're growing primarily to make the best possible wine we can make. So we farm it differently than, if you're farming, you're selling grapes and you're trying to make money doing that, which is very difficult. You're gonna make sacrifices. Right now, what we do is we're growing specifically for quality, not for quantity, not for yield. So it allows us to work with varietals like Cabernet, which on our site, it's more limestone, calcareous soil, which can be challenging with Cabernet. But if you don't ask a lot from the vine, you keep a small amount of fruit, you can really make unbelievably high quality Cabernet. There's definitely vintage to vintage variances like there is everywhere. It's a little more challenging than Napa. It's probably not as economically viable as Napa. But I truly believe, especially what we did in 23, that we are going to be producing world-class Cabernet on a level that we've not seen in Paso. And keep in mind that the history of Paso is Cabernet. I think
we're still 70%
Cabernet. And the majority of those, big commercialized Cabernets that come out might potentially say that will have some Paso Robles fruit and some Cabernet. So
Yeah, we know so.
so there's a lot of that. So you got to keep that in mind. It's not like that you can't make a good Cabernet out of Paso Robles. No one's really tried to make an exceptional Cabernet out of Paso Robles. That's not commercialized. So that's what we're really starting to do. And we both are investing a lot. Thank Bordeaux.
So I know you are, and I'm very excited to see what's coming down the line. What about from the production, the actual creation of these wines? Do you think it's differently than to do in the past, or
We definitely do things our own way. Like one of my main things as a winemaker is doing things my own way. And a lot of that credit goes to what Justin Smith for sure. Like him giving me the confidence to feel good about what I'm doing and take chances and take swings and not really worry about what people have said in the past or what works or what doesn't work. Like just go for it. If you really believe in something, just really take a swing at it. I would like to go back a little bit and give a nod to Stefan Sayer, because I think that if there ever was a Cabernet, Paso Robles that was really made exceptionally, it started with him. And I think that's when I had one of his pure Cabernets for the first time. I realized, wow, look what we could do on the west side of Paso Robles. So that was kind of the impetus. And then I still believe that our Rhone varieties are very fantastic in this area and maybe star. So we do a lot of co-fermentation with those. Because we have no rules here, because the handcuffs are off, we like to put a little Syrah, a little Petite Syrah. Basically we treat it like a spice rack. And we take whatever we think is going to be best. We want to be Cabernet based, we'll make it Cabernet based. But we'll add what we think will enhance those grapes. I personally don't believe there's any one perfect grape. I think that every grape needs a little help from something else, whether it's acid or color or fruit or spice or tannin. There's always something that you can use to help move that along. So we spend a lot of time doing that.
And that's an example of an artisan winemaker versus a commercialized winery.
Right.
And a commercialized winery is using additives and using things to acidulate wines, doing things to hit that recipe. It becomes a recipe. It doesn't become an artisan winemaking, whereas like you're actually taking fruit to create that perfect wine and not using
create the correct acid and everything else. Like we don't acidulate anything, we don't deacidulate, we don't fine, we don't filter. We use grapes literally as the spice dip. So the wines will be slightly different every year. They'll always be based on the same idea, based on the same. But to me, that's what wine's all about is being able to tell the difference between vintage, between terroir, the difference between vineyard. I don't want a product that is something that tastes the same every time. The monoculture of that just makes me crazy. I have to have something different all the time, or I go nuts. And you would too. I drink wine with you. We're like, oh man, it's different than last year, or and whether it's my wine or other people's wines, even Burgundies or whatever we're drinking. We're excited about. Oh, this was a wet year. Oh, this was a dry year.
Yeah.
Oh, this is wet bank. This is right bank. Whatever it is, we love that almost gamification of the drinking process, which is based on the artistry of the winemaking rather than the commercial production.
And it creates natural. We find all sorts of. The things we did last year created all these opportunities for new winemaking things that we're going to do in the future. Whereas, like the commercialized aspect of the wine industry in this country, unfortunately, it sucks because it's like the Applebee's model. It's like people want to taste without naming brands. They want to go to the grocery store, buy this, and it's not about the vintage. It just has to taste the same. I like this. Yeah, it's like it's like Applebee's. Throw a lot of salt, sugar at it, and everyone's like, "Wow, it's great."
And in reality, too, from like a business or financial standpoint, we couldn't do what we do if we were on a huge scale. Sure, the fact that we're small scale allows us to find the people who are interested in the artistry, and actually have a great palate.
Yeah, sure.
But so it makes sense for you to not cut any corners. It makes sense for me to not cut any corners, but that would make zero sense in that world.
Well, it makes no financial sense. But
someday, hopefully, so most regions of wine in the world are picking grapes. This goes back to like Old New World. Mm-hmm. So Chateauneuf, Bordeaux, Burgundy, they're picking because acid is dropping out of the fruit. So their pHs are going up. And they're like, crap, we have to pick because this grapes have no acid left. So you're going to see very low Brix levels or sugar levels in grapes. You're going to see lower alcohol wines. But that was not a winemaker decision. It was a decision based on acid, and that's where the sugar happened to be. Paso Robles is the flip of that. It's a total inverse situation that we are literally waiting for taxes to come down to fit our wines, which is why we have elevated alcohols. But again, it's the same decision. So from a winemaking perspective, we're both picking on the same thing, which is acid. It's just our sugars have to be higher, theirs have to be lower. I happen to like the way that our fruit tastes at the time because I think as the sugars are more developed, the phenolics of the wine or the taste, flavors, aromatics of the wine are more developed as well.
When do you guys think about the traditional wine that comes out of Paso? Not necessarily, let's not call it Cabernet or Chateau Pop or Syrah GSM. Let's talk about just like the stuff you traditionally see that comes out of Paso. And please feel free to go down this path as you choose. What are some of the foods you think pair best with those higher alcohol, those wines that are being produced here? What do you feel like is something that really pairs tremendously when you're going out and buying a bottle of really just something excellent? And feel free to go down a varietal path there as well.
Sure. Well, I think there's two things there. One is that when we say a higher alcohol wines, I think there's a difference between the actual number on the bottle and the perceived alcohol. So I think that some of our wines here, if you didn't look at the number on the bottle, you would never realize how much alcohol is in it. So I think they can perform like much lower alcohol wines, but they do have a ton of flavor. They do have a ton of texture. They do have great tannins. So I would say for the reds that I drink here or that I would recommend, which would be some of the better Rhone brands, some of the better Cabernet brands. I would say the high-end wines that I consider coming out of the west side of Paso. Something with flavor, give it some seasoning, give it some sauce, and go with a little bit fattier piece of meat, like a ribeye, New York strip maybe. I mean, soft fillets, cheese top.
And you guys are both phenomenal cooks. I've had the pleasure of eating with both of you guys many times. So I'm really interested in that. Kit, why don't you take that a little bit as well? Would you?
I'm a little partial to my home-raised lamb because we have a lot of lamb that we do. So we tend to we do wine dinners, we pair the wine with the lamb. And we finish the lamb on some great feed that creates that marbling, creates that fat. I think, again, the diversity of wine in Paso, and then the diversity, you can use that much better for like the diversity of food. Whereas Napa, you're stuck with the cab, and cab goes great with a steak. Nothing really beats a cab with a steak. Right. But when you're dealing with duck or you're dealing with proteins like some pork that are a little lighter, Grenache comes in like so well. I mean, Grenache, which you obviously make some of the greatest house in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It is such a versatile wine. It's really what Pinot drinkers should be drinking is Grenache. Yeah, Grenache has the versatility. You can be very feminine. If you go all the way to this deep, dark, concentrated, with tannins that are super grippy, and it's an amazing street wine.
I think that made me realize too that where we're sitting, they have an incredible ability to create vegetarian dishes that have that intense flavor that hold up to big white wine. Sure. And there's not a lot of places where you do that. So I would say like a place like this, honestly, there's always something up to see other great place. But like the other side of Paso that's so great for me growing up here is that there's so much diversity in food and there's so many great places to eat. We kind of had the great wine for a while, and now the food scene is kind of caught up to the wine business.
Coming here 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of this great food scene. You go to Napa, you got the Culinary Institute, you got, like I said, 4 international airports that surround Napa Valley. So people want great food, and Paso's kind of behind the time. But now you've got these incredible places like In Bloom, and operators like Chris Heisbo come in and bring that Midwest Chicago and really develop and bring in the chefs and make these incredible flavors that just sing to the palate, and then you can pick these incredible wines and cocktails that pair up great with these foods. You got Julian Aseo, classically French-trained, son of Stefan, who's making this banging French food, and it takes you back, and it's just incredible. Or Il Cortile, that does an incredible job on the Italian side, and their new project Parchetto, which is incredible as well. I'm very excited about some of the things that, as an outsider, we're seeing that are happening in Paso.
And a quick shout out to Chris because he has delved into the winemaking world, and his brand called Nix, and they're opening soon. My tasting, aside of my tasting, they're going to be right next door to me, so I'm excited to have as a neighbor and do some cool shit.
Yeah, no, and that's just some of the things that I don't think you can do that. I mean, it's in the Napa Valley. You think about, and then I'll shut up and go back to you guys, but for me, as a guy that consumes wine, for me over the last number of years, what I saw was in Napa Valley, it felt like every winemaker was reverse engineering a 100-point score.
Sure.
We're going to that lab. Everybody wants to try that same thing. And to your point of earlier, it's boring. And you want to try amazing stuff.
Score chasing.
Yeah, score chasing.
And it's not even, at some point, it's not even score chasing. It's just economics. You know what I mean? If you know what's going to get the price point, if you know it's very difficult to be an artist and do your own thing, because the price of entry is so high that you have to sell for a certain number, and you have to appease the people who are expecting what they expect from the area. Nobody knows what to expect from Paso. This place is like a wild card. It doesn't mean that the quality is not just as high. It's just that there's so many gunslingers doing their own thing, and you can really find what suits you as a person. You can decide for yourself instead of looking at a score from a magazine. And I'm not sure. And I do very well with scores, so I'm not against scores at all.
How many 100-point scores now?
Just one, but a bunch of 99s.
Yeah, that's all right.
But the point is like people really need to, especially with wine and food, tune into what they really appreciate and what they like. And it's not really about what someone else says. It's a great guy, right?
Well, I
it's
think
a great guy.
You have to make what you like. I mean, you have to make what you love. You have to stand behind that. If you're chasing something else or someone else's palate, then you're never going to make the best wine. You have to make what you believe is the best wine, and then let the people come to you. I mean, don't let the critics, don't let anyone steer you in that direction. I mean, make what you like to drink. And I think that authenticity will bring people to you. And I think there's more ability to do that in this area as opposed to Napa, where people, if you do something different, people will be like, you're an idiot. What are you doing?
Well, and you may be financial.
We're getting into harvest, which is it's an exciting time of year. And luckily this happened just before it gets too crazy, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. But
you did
but
get
it
up
is
at 4:30 today, actually.
Yeah, but it's like, look, we don't sleep. We're all sleep deprived, and
martini driven,
and there's energy in the air, and like, you know, it's interesting because as a grower, you know, you work all year, you make all these like crazy decisions on what you're doing day in, day out, that only really you realize in the last, like, it's like the 3 or 4 weeks we have now. And so that all that hard work comes to fruition right now. And as I picked grapes this morning, drove them to your place, and you know, almost hit about 3 cars on the way with the trailer and everything. But
it was still drunk.
I mean, a little bit, but it was fun. But the point is it's exciting. The energy in the air, the you know, it's this natural high of,
and it lasts. So we have new interns every year. They work so hard, and they feel that energy. They like live that energy, and they perform at a high level. So today we were literally able to spend, they brought 7 boxes of fruit.
Yeah, not much.
3 tons.
Yeah.
That most of the time wineries should go through that in an hour. We spent all day on that. We literally sorted it, like the berries were going like, and there was not a leaf, a stem. It's great because when you have time to do it, you want to go perfect. There's times when things get a little faster, a little more coming in. Well, like today, literally, we had saying for him that is absolutely perfection.
Wow.
And I love that. I love perfection, whether it's his or it's mine or whoever's. I just want to make the best wine possible. I don't care if it's mine or his or anybody else's.
Well, Don, around some of that same stuff, and we've got a few minutes left here, but I'd like you to touch on not just the wine, what we're doing with the distillery. I think it's interesting for people to understand today that things aren't just about wine. We've seen the wine world change dramatically, as you have, and we all have over the years. And you saw those trends and some of those changes beginning. And what are some of the things you're doing now, the distillery side, that are so exciting? I've obviously sampled more than my fair share, but we'd love to hear a bit more of that.
Or you started the distillery because I saw a loss of product from the wine rolls, Harvest, Saunier, or We Bleed Wines. Shorten that up, but we started distillery in 2015. Eventually, the bourbon, the gin. Our gin is fantastic, but they're big markets, right? I think the gin really has potential. We started making a product called Chocolate Love, and it's just this. So it turns out that one of the oldest extract companies in the United States is right here in Paso Robles. Cook's Vanilla. They're like the oldest producer of vanilla in the United States. And they made us a chocolate extract from real cocoa bean, and they did it because they were local, and we were able to get it approved by the TTB. And so now we make this beautiful product called Chocolate Love, and it is the best chocolate vodka you'll ever have in your life. Like, it is not even close.
Well, guys, if we have just a couple of minutes left before we wrap up this episode, first, huge thanks to In Bloom and Chris Heisma for generously allowing us to come in here before service.
And Todd for letting us beat him up.
And for Todd for letting us beat him up. If you haven't had a chance to visit Paso Robles, this is a must. You got to come to In Bloom, have a great dinner. Le Petit Canaille, Il Cortile. Got to experience all the amazing things that Paso Robles has to offer. It's not Napa. It's not going to be Napa. It's just an incredible place to go. Kit, Donnie, anything you guys want to add before we wrap up?
I do want to say one thing, and I don't say this lightly. Hawksville Ranch, which is Kit's place, and the way that he got me to make wine for him, because his property is so amazing. His vineyard tour here is I've been here my whole life, and it's the most beautiful views and one of the best tours it is the best tour here, and I think probably the best in California. So if you come here and you don't do that tour, you're missing out.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. It's an amazing property.
And I say that for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's nice. We have to be the best in order to like differentiate ourselves.
Also, we just like to win.
Yeah, we're super competitive.
We are super competitive.
And we're gonna wrestle after.
If you're not first, you're last. With that, thank you very much for listening to this most recent episode of A One Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Jeremy Dicker. If you like this episode, remember to like it and follow us online at any one of your preferred providers and offerings. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to One Path to Wealth podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at www.onewealthmgmt.com or give us a call at 855-663-9584. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of One Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Investment advisory services offered through One Wealth Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance solutions offered through One Wealth Management, Financial and Insurance Services, Inc.